Hello YouTube, Suicide for Celluloid here. Sorry, it's been a few weeks. I went on vacation. I went out and I actually hung out with Theo Warner and Mike Norman, and then went to New York. Almost went to see another YouTuber there, whose name I won't mention because I just said he lives in New York, and I don't wanna. I'm not sure if he's cool with me dropping his name. But it just didn't work out. So sorry about that, you person who I wanted to go see. But now I'm kind of back home. I'm sort of settling back into my daily routine and my existence, and all this is fantastically boring, I'm sure, to you, my viewers. So I've been thinking a lot about what it means to have a position, right? This seems to be it seems to turn into a kind of I get the sense that at a certain point philosophy just becomes like trading cards, right? Or like action figures, right? I have my Master Splinter action figure from 1990 or something, right? Like I have these things, right? And these things, when I take them all together, they constitute an identity, right? So things like I am a scientific realist, I am a scientific instrumentalist, I am a moral realist, I am a I don't know, moral relativist, I am a moral nihilist, I'm a whatever, right? Like you hear these terms being bandied about, and like, and this bothers me, right? This has always bothered me, and I've been in a lot of situations in the past 6 months or so where people have asked me, well, what is your position, right? And this is always like something that I react with a certain kind of violence to. I don't like to think of myself in these kinds of terms, and I think the reason why is that I have built into me, just into my being, a certain kind of contrarian ethic, right? That says, oh, a whole lot of people believe this. Well, fuck that thing, right? Whatever that is, right? And so this sort of way of considering one's beliefs, kind of, it feels like a way to align yourself with a group, right? And this is something that I'm always weird about, right? I'm a weird guy when it comes to declaring myself to be a member of a group. I don't like to do it. But on top of that, I'm very much I like to think of myself as kind of a philosophical libertine, right? And I think that this is a spirit that has been kind of lost, right? In that I feel like my relationship to the philosophical tradition is that I like to walk through its halls and labyrinths, read these texts upon texts, and say, I really like that passage, or I really like that idea, right? And I mean that's as far as that relationship, in some sense, that's as far as that relationship goes. Some passages of texts, some things have moved me very deeply and very much changed my thinking on things, and et cetera, et cetera. But at no point do I feel any kind of urge to subscribe to a system or position on the basis of some set of passages. I always try to go out of my way when I like something a little too much to start trying to chip it, right? To try and put cracks in the facade, because I think we're trained from a very early age to think about discourse in a way that is in a sort of groupthink kind of way. And this is something that, again, this goes back to me being fundamentally contrarian, right? I don't like to agree with anyone all the time, right? I like to disagree on points, and very often I will just disagree with people, right? Because I think there's value in this, right? I think that there's value in the activity of saying, I like this set of things that you do, right? Or I like this set of statements that you've made. But we don't have to agree on everything, right? I think there's also infinitely more value if we were to talk about ethics, for instance. Infinitely more value in just saying, look, let's talk about ethics, right? What is it that you think is right, and what is it that you think is wrong? Why do you think that way? Blah blah blah. We could hold that whole conversation without needing to appeal to any sort of category, any sort of position that's been laid down before us, right? And a lot of the reason why I like thinking of philosophy in this kind of activity, or as this kind of activity, is that I like to think of, or I like to believe at least, that philosophy at its best, right, is something like an instrument of self-actualization, right? It's an instrument. It's something that it's this activity that we do to conceptualize ourselves. And to think about ourselves and to change ourselves, right? And to develop who we are and all of this, right? In this way, I have a very individualistic or egoistic conception of philosophy. And it's not just the self, right? Like there's also questions of, we can redescribe society and potentially change it, right? We see this with the advent of Marxism or something, right? There are instances, and perhaps even feminism, right? There are instances of, look at this relationship. We think of this relationship in this way, and if we simply redescribe it to look like something else, well, then we can take a different stance towards it, right? You can sort of shift or reveal or reinscribe the power structures of society. Now, or at least I think you can. I feel like I believe that you can, or it is my position that you can, right? Otherwise, I don't think there would be a reason to have these conversations, right? If I didn't think that philosophy was something that I could use to understand myself and to change, not just understand what I am, but to actually change what I am, right? If I didn't think that that was a possibility, then I wouldn't be interested in it. It seems to me that doesn't happen by way of saying I am a Kuhnian, right? And then here's a list of arguments that have been given by other people, right, about Kuhn's philosophy of science. I'm not learning anything about myself in that gesture, right? I am throwing in my hat with a can. This kind of thinking is the kind of thinking that should fundamentally be avoided, I believe. This is the thing that I find objectionable about at least many strains of Christianity and religion in general. Right? I'm very uneasy about the idea of creeds. I like to think that we as individuals can conceive ourselves as individuals. That we're not static, and that we can become Because if we can't, then there really is no hope for the world, I think. I really think that's true. If individuals can't self-actualize, and if individuals can't self-create, then we're truly lost. And these are the stakes, I think, of philosophy. This is what philosophy should be doing, or this is what I think it should be doing. Or I put it this way: my interest in philosophy begins and ends with that project. Right. So there's that. There's the old famous Marxist line from Marx, right, where he says, "Philosophers hitherto have merely attempted to explain the world. The point is to change it." And I think there's a real lesson to be learned in that line. People have taken that to heart, I think, and that ethic exists. This is something that I think this is the value of philosophy when set against the sciences. I think that there are people who believe, in fact, I've heard people state, right, that now that we have the sciences, we simply don't need this activity of philosophy. And that's true insofar as you're talking about, I don't know, natural philosophy or some other archaic branch. But I think that the domain of philosophy should be something more like the subjective, right? It should be something more like talking about how we understand ourselves. In some way, I would consider philosophy as a kind of meta-literature, right? It's a literature. Well, I mean, it is in some sense literature, but the point is that it's a non-fiction kind of literature, if you like. It's a way of talking about things. It's a way of trying to conceive things. It's a way of trying to give birth to new things, new concepts, new ideas that we could interact with, and that we could play with, and that we could interrogate and undertake this activity that is so central to our being. Right? This is one of the points, and I suppose I should end with this point, because the video is getting up to, it's going to be 15 minutes in a minute. This is one of the points of interest that I have with something like the creation story, right? What does Adam do in the garden? He names things, right? He walks around the garden naming things. He attaches symbols to objects. And when we name things, right, I do think that one of the truths in that creation story is that at the heart of what it is to be human is that we get a certain gratification, a certain fulfillment out of naming things, right? Out of conceptualizing things, out of understanding things, out of putting things into order, if you like. That's, to me, what philosophy comes down to. And I don't know, isn't there something so impoverished about playing this game? I am a moral nihilist. No, fuck you. I'm a person. I believe all sorts of things. I believe in all sorts of things in all sorts of contexts when it suits me, right? I'm not a logical discourse. I'm a person. And philosophy is nothing if it's not personal. Have a good day.